I know it's very common for agents to set an appointment, meet with the client, and then get ghosted thereafter. And I think you usually getting ghosted is some type of flaw.
People are going to try to keep pushing the appointments out, and you have to realize that once it goes past the week, the chances of you getting them they drop at least by like 50 to 70%.
My wife isn't sure.
I think social media is the new way to go. I think you have to have some type of presence eventually on social media. I mean, you have 60, 70, 80-year-olds on TikTok now. So
they're gonna engage with you, and like eventually they're gonna refer their friends. They're gonna be like, oh, my insurance agent, he's so cool. He's Instagram famous or whatever, right? And what ends up happening is it just becomes easier to ask for referrals. You also become an author. For those of you that are new, we have these calls. We bring on clients of ours who've had success, talk about their strategies, tactics. If there's anything that you're curious about, you can ask as well. Now, the topic is dealing with objections, getting ghosted, etc. I know it's very common for agents to set an appointment, meet with the client, and then get ghosted thereafter. And I think you usually getting ghosted is some type of flaw in the process for the most part. And Jeremy, I'm sure you've dealt a lot with that throughout your career. When that happens, what you've done to combat that, and what your typical rates are in terms of like percentages or KPIs that you look at. You know, if someone's getting ghosted 50% of the time, are they doing something wrong, etc.
usually for the most part, when you get ghosted, it can be a few things. Probably like there wasn't like a sense of urgency to buy. Probably gave them too much information or maybe too little to the point where they're like, you know what, I don't want to deal with it. They don't want to say no, right? Sometimes it's human nature where rather than say no, they just figure if I don't answer, maybe this person will stop calling me. So that's just their way of avoiding. To avoid that, you kind of want to keep the ground neutral, where like not that it's a salesperson versus the consumer, but more like have it where it's like, look, it's a free open space. Like this is like the trust circle. You can tell me whatever it is that you want. Like it's like a judgment-free zone, and that's usually what it is that I'll try to do, or that environment to create. So this way they know like if the answer is no, okay, cool, no problem, we can still be friends.
And then, like, is there something you have found specific to reduce the rates of getting ghosted? Like, do you try to be more broad on your initial calls and then more specific later down the road?
Yeah, so when it comes to the first phone call, a lot of us sometimes we see like a need there and we'll say, okay, this person is the perfect fit for whatever product it is that you're selling. And you try to kind of like shove it down their throat that first phone call, asking more questions, keeping it more general. So this way it's like kind of like you're dangling that carrot. So this way they know, wait, let me answer that call the second time. This way I can really find out what Jeremy was trying to explain or what Jeremy has to say. A lot of times when you just shell out too much information, they're going to take that information and just take it to their local advisor or use Google and just say, you know what, maybe this is not what it is I was looking for anyway, and create assumptions. And usually assumptions lead to them ghosting you.
On the topic of objection handling, what are like some of the most common objections? You know, I would imagine right now, since the market's doing pretty well, people are a little bit less reluctant to move money, as well as with the elections coming up, there's uncertainty. So maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, the most common ones that you're going to hear now is it's the summer, I'm away, I'm going away, give me a call in 2, 3 weeks. Right now, with everything going on, I'm a little hesitant to kind of make any major moves. I kind of want to see how this plays out, things like that. I think those are going to be the top three that you'll hear, especially you vacation. People are going to try to keep pushing the appointments out, and you have to realize that once it goes past the week, the chances of you getting them they drop at least by like 50 to 70%. After that, you pretty much kind of have to like resell them on and again if you can even get them on the phone. Right now, for whatever appointments that you guys are booking, I always keep mine between like 48 to 72 hours, maybe a little bit of leeway, but now especially you have to keep that window as close as possible. So if you think that you speak to someone today and if they go on to their 2 week vacation to, I don't know, Jamaica, and that they're going to come back and say, hey, I'm ready to buy, not going to happen.
Jeremy, I have a question for you. I just wondered how you deal with the guy when you finally get them on the phone and they say, yeah, but I can't talk now. Can you call me this evening after 6? What do you personally do when that happens to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if I call, let's say Allan right now, and Allan says, hey, Jeremy, I can't speak right now. I'm busy. Call me at 6:30. Depends on the tone, right? Normally I'll say I can't. I'll say, listen, yeah, I'm actually busy at 6:30. I have an appointment. Would 6 o'clock help you or would 7 o'clock help you? Just because when you automatically agree to it, since they don't know you, there's no relationship there, there, they automatically put you in a category as like an order taker. If you show some resistance in their mind, it creates a level of status like, okay, this person is not looking at their clock at 6:30 waiting for them to call me, because that's what happens, right? When you go into buy something anywhere, if you tell the person, hey, you know what, call me at 5, and they call you at 5 o'clock exactly, your status, it just lowers. It's just human nature.
What if people say I got to talk to my wife, or even better, my wife isn't sure?
So if someone, whenever I'm doing any presentation, I always try to include their partner in there. It just makes it a lot easier. For whatever reason, let's say if they're very adamant about their wife not being there, or their husband, what I'll do is I'll take the result of it and I'll try to implement it in the sales process. So for example, if they're like, no, my wife's always busy, no, she don't want to do it, she don't want to meet with anyone. And I'll say, you mentioned that you were losing money. How would your wife feel knowing the fact that you were able to get X amount of income and better growth? But is that something that you think that she would like? And then, yeah, of course. Well, why so? Well, if she's safe, then I won't have to worry about hearing her complain about X, Y, and Z, about this and that. So I'll just take whatever the result is and put the wife's name in it and ask how they think their wife would feel to move forward. And usually that wins them over. And even after that, once I get them to say, okay, then I'll say, look, why don't we do this? Tuesday at 1 o'clock, why don't we get your wife or your husband on the call? Everything that I just explained to you, I'll explain to them. At that point, if they like it, great. If not, no problem. We can still be friends. No harm, no foul.
So if someone's doing virtual sales, right, there's always this topic of building credentials, building trust, because how will someone give 200 grand to a complete stranger on the internet, right? So what are things you've done? I've heard different things from other clients. So maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my classic go-to is showing them my driver's license. I know some people have their actual insurance license number. What I do is I actually take them to the website so they can see it for themselves. This way it's not some random number that they think. And I'll say, hey, look, you can go on here. It's a government website. It's not something that, that we made ourselves. And then what I do is government website for New York, you could type in your information, your last name, your first name, state. So I actually do it with them so they can see it. When I hit search, the results come up and it shows my credentials. So that's what I do right with them. And then I make it clear, like, look, I'm not going to risk my livelihood or my license for any amount of money, especially for 200,000.
Another thing is, like, if you see specific patterns, right? As an example, maybe you hit a dry spell, and for whatever reason you have a slow sales month, or a couple of weeks are slow. Like, what's kind of your process? Because you don't want to switch things up too soon and panic. So what's your process? Like, you try to change things in your sales process over time? Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the past, I would try to change things like, hey, maybe my pitch sucks, maybe wrong. Often than not, the reason why you have a slow sales process 99% of the time is because at some point or another, you stop prospecting. So what happens is that for, let's say, a month or two, you don't really have any appointments, especially if you're just starting out. You really don't have any appointments. So right now, you're just on the phone and you're dialing like crazy. Then after a few weeks, you build up that momentum where you start booking appointments. As you start booking appointments, you actually start to prospect less, maybe because you feel like you're too busy, maybe you're traveling. Sometimes you just get comfortable and you think, oh wait, I made I had a couple of closes and I only dialed the phone 20 times today. So instead of me doing a couple hundred dials like I normally do, I'm good, right? So that momentum will now start to slow down. Obviously, you can't prospect at the same level every single day, but you have to kind of find like that middle ground of where and how can I prospect every single day, whether it's you doing it or having someone else do it for you, to keep that level of activity up. Because at the end of the day, it's just all comes down to activity.
What if someone says that their advisor or their friend or their sister who's a financial expert told them that annuities suck, and they're very apprehensive? How do you typically combat that?
Yeah, what I would say is, sure, yeah, that's not a problem. Maybe an annuity is not for you. What is it that you know or don't know about annuities? And then I would say 99.9% of the time, they'll say, well, yeah, I don't want to give my money up and then get monthly income, for what? I would rather have control of the money. And then I'll say, well, that sounds like one type of annuity. Did they ever educate you on the other three? And then they'll say, there's 3 other types. And then at that point, I'll go ahead and I'll educate them on that. And I'll say, look, an annuity is not for everyone. And then I'll just educate them on what's out there. So I won't necessarily shove anything down their throat or try to sell them on why it's the best thing out there. It's really just educating them and asking questions and kind of like pulling to trying to see, okay, what's going to move this person? What is it that they're looking for? How could I help them, if I could even help them at all?
In terms of online credentials, I know you mentioned driver license. I know you mentioned like taking them to the insurance website and showing them that you're licensed in good standing, etc. Have you done anything like put up content on social media, anything like that?
That's something that I've been really slacking on that I definitely want to do. I think social media is the new way to go. I think you have to have some type of presence eventually on social media. I mean, you have 60, 70, 80-year-olds on TikTok now. So
I was gonna add something. The best way to increase your conversion rates and without really putting in that much more effort is to make content on different social media platforms and find those prospects on those platforms. For example, if you make content on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, it doesn't matter. Whatever platform you're going in on, you could probably repurpose that content for other platforms, and you can ask them at the end of your initial call, oh, by the way, do you have Facebook or Instagram? And then they're going to say, oh, I use Instagram. Cool. What's your handle? Let's connect. You just follow them. And if you have like 1,000 followers and you have a bunch of content there, which doesn't really take much effort to get to that, then all these people will actually engage with you, and they're going to see you as an authority. We actually have a couple clients. I don't think that they're on this call. One guy has like 30,000 followers. When he just follows people on social media, it builds up so much status delta that it becomes a lot easier for him to sell, because they see all his content. It's all relevant for what he's talking to them about, and they're like, hey, this guy's so trustworthy. Just becomes a way easier sale. Like, that's the best way to build real relationships. And it's almost like an email list, because as you build more content, these people are going to trust you more and more. So it may start off very slow, but if you actually talk about topics that are relevant to these people, they're going to engage with you, and like eventually they're going to refer their friends. They're going to be like, oh, my insurance agent, he's so cool, he's Instagram famous or whatever, right? And what ends up happening is it just becomes easier to ask for referrals. You also become an authority. If they have other questions, they're going to come to you because you're constantly at the forefront of their mind. So this is like some tactics that you guys can utilize. Another thing you guys can do, this is actually very helpful, if you guys want to go in on social media content, get testimonials, video testimonials from clients who you've worked with in the past, who've been happy with you. Have them talk about their experiences genuinely. It doesn't even have to be a testimonial. It could literally be like, hey, you meet with them, say, hey, I'm like, this would be helpful for me. Do you mind if I record a quick video of you summarizing how long you've known me, how we've worked together, what we've done? And then when people see that type of material, they'll be a lot more comfortable working with you, because they'll just trust you, right? So as Jeremy said, I think trust is a big part of this business, especially when you're dealing with people's retirement. And sometimes people overthink things, but basic things like a video testimonial from a client that you worked with 2 years ago or a year ago or 5 years ago could go a long way, especially when you have multiple. You can add that. I don't know how the laws are with securities to websites, but you guys could have those videos on your social media profiles, and then it makes it a lot easier for people, because when you follow them back on Facebook, they see those testimonials. In general, I know you previously talked about this. I think it'd be very beneficial for the newer folks to talk about your take on illustrations. When's the best time to present them? I know you oftentimes don't even present them, so maybe touch upon that. I think this will be helpful.
Yeah, so with illustrations, I rarely show them. With me, it's more of the concept. So especially when I'm meeting someone face to face, I just pull out a pen and paper and literally just draw it out for them, right? Like the concept, how it works. When you start showing illustrations, most times they will want you to leave it to them, for them to take a look at it. Whenever I'm going into see someone in person, or I'm selling over their Zoom, it's all concepts. I'm asking questions, explaining to them how it works, trying to figure out what it is that they're looking for, and it's just strictly just educational. The last appointment, I'll show them the illustration, and as I'm showing them the illustration, I'm taking it on and off the screen. When you are going to show it, but definitely don't lead the call with the illustration, because they're not going to think of Leo that's here to help me and to help me protect my money. They're going to think, wait, Leo told me 5%. I want to see if Michael can get me 7%. That's literally all they hear. When it comes to illustrations, for those of you that are new, I would say try to avoid showing the illustration as much as possible, and really just try to take a deeper dive on educating them, making sure that they're comfortable.
Usually, it may go on for 30 minutes and you feel like the call went great, but most of the time they're going to ghost you on the second appointment, because it's kind of like a magician who reveals their magic trick. And it may sound like a stupid analogy, but it's like when you know the magic trick, you lose interest in the whole magic show, right? So it's the same idea here, where it's better to keep calls brief, get to the point, build enough trust and suspense where they're curious and they want to come to the next call. But again, you're not revealing all your cards prematurely, if that makes sense.